Hey everybody, we're back. Now this is episode 9, part 2 of Dragstrip chassis preparation. So we talked about last time, we talked about why we like drag racing. You know, it's a contest of acceleration, right? You just want to outrun the guy next to you or outrun the clock. A race is a contest of speed. You know, when you were a kid and you got in a 50-yard dash and everybody started at the same time, the guy who was going fastest at the end won. We also talked about details. So I want to show you a detail that a lot of people, you've probably seen this before, wondered what it was, or maybe never even bothered to notice. Look at this slot. So why is that slot there? A lot of guys think that if you fall over, it breaks off and instead of losing your whole lever. This slot is to prevent wind from putting your brake on, the force of the wind from putting the brake on at very high speeds. Top secret, when we went 219 miles an hour at the Ohio Mile on the Ninja H2, one of the good racers there is a super good guy. He came up and he said, Brock, he said, a little over the half mile, did you notice your brake light come on? And I was like, yeah, I was wondering if the rider was just sort of covering the brakes, you know, getting ready for the slowdown process. He said, no, he says the H2s don't have a slot. The brake lever is activating. It was around 190 miles an hour, and it's hard to go faster with your brakes on. So little details like this. We came home that night, brought the lever, threw it up on the mill, slotted it, no more brake light the entire weekend, and we set some records. So just an example of the details. This is one detail that could add up to slowing you down dramatically. But we're going to talk to you about all the little details to make this bike accelerate harder. As a function of accelerating harder, it's also going to go faster. And so we're going to pull the tools out. Now, I think the easiest way to do this, generally what I do on my own personal bikes, you got to start somewhere. We're just going to start at the front and move back. So I talked to you last time about the mirrors. Let's just go ahead and take these mirrors off. Okay, for you first timers, if you've never put a wrench on your motorcycle, I can save you a lot of time and effort. Just get you some plastic bags. They can be the kitchen bags, the 1-quart bags. And as you pull the hardware off from a particular area, go ahead and bag it so you know where it goes back on. Assuming that you don't replace those fasteners with some that, like for instance, our mirror block offs. They come with their own bolts in the kit. So we won't be using these, but at least we'll know where they are, so that if we want to quickly put the mirrors back on to go for a street ride, we know where the hardware is instead of spending an hour searching to do a 10-minute job. And you know, we all want to keep our stuff nice, so bag them up. I always just put a table down with something underneath it. It could be a moving blanket like this, or just some old towels if you would happen to get some from a hotel or something. Of course, you don't have to pay any attention to all this. If you want, throw all your bolts into a Folgers can, and then at the end you could go on Search and Find and figure out how to put it all together like a big old puzzle, and maybe that's your thing. Okay, we have the mirrors off, and because I know you have an insatiable thirst for learning, we are going to show you how we shorten the front end, drop the front end to lower that center of gravity. I'm going to do all the work of pulling off all the body work and the fairing so you can see exactly what we're going to do. We'll fast forward through that though, so you don't have to mess with all the details. Okay, this transformation was much quicker for you than it was for us. I need to make this clear. If you're going to drop your front end or add a front end lowering strap, you do not have to take all of the stuff off your bike. We have pulled the fairing off so that you can see clearly, more clearly, exactly what we're doing. And I'm straight up honest. We ran into a snag. I love this bike, but it has issues that some other bikes don't have when it comes to lowering the forks, or lowering the bike by raising the forks. So if you could come in here, let me just show you this. basically what we're going to do. Now, on your bike, you can get to these pinch bolts. There's another one here and another one here. You can get to them through here with wrenches, right? You don't have to pull all this off, but you can see what we're going to do. We're going to loosen these up, and then we're going to allow this fork tube to slide up. Well, this is where we start getting into our difficulty. Once the fork slides up, if you can see, and I don't know if you can see, it's flat right underneath the bottom of the triple clamp here, but then it tapers down. So this is a 55 millimeter fork. So once I drop down, let's say I want to lower it down, you know, an inch or so. Look at that. Which means that when we drop these forks, if we want to drop them like a normal bike, we're going to be clamping on the taper. Clamping on the taper is never a good idea. But the way this bike was designed, we really want it to go fast. And knowing that that 1/10 of a second per inch, every half inch, every quarter inch counts on how far we can lower this front end. I'm going to see if I can lower it. Obviously this is slotted, and this part of the clamp would be on a straight section. This part of the clamp might be on a taper, and I'm just going to see if I can, well, let's pick an inch. Let's see if I can lower this an inch. Now, if you look at some of the other bikes that we've got here, we get the question all the time, how much do I lower my front end? Well, as much as you can while still being safe. That's always the answer. But look at these different bikes. Here on Christine, you can see, well, the actual numbers don't really matter, but that's a little over an inch and 3/8. We come over here to our 600, about an inch and 3/8. Now, if you see on our FXR, this is actually a ZX10 front end mounted on my FXR. You can see here, this area all the way down to here, and I know it's hard to see because it's polished, but we've got this much here, and then this area is all the same diameter. So if I wanted to take these forks and raise them 3 inches, I could do that. Look at the Busa. Busa forks are once again, they're very similar. If we look at it, we're raised up about an inch above the top clamp, or the top plate here, but that plate is about 3/4 of an inch thick. So effectively, this thing is moved up, you know, an inch and a half, inch and 3/4 so, or, well, the bike is dropped down, the forks are moved up. So we're going to try to mess with this, and I'll show you how we set it up, and we're just going to have to sort of do the best we can. If it looks like it's clamping on the taper and this clamp doesn't want to give that much, we're going to have to raise the fork back up. So also, clamping on the taper, not being 100% on the flats, could also cause handling problems. Well, that's something we're not going to know until we go and ride our bike. So we'll get this where we think it needs to be, go out for a ride, and if we think that the bike isn't functioning correctly, we'll have to raise it back up. So it is what it is. These bikes weren't designed to be slammed on the ground, like, you know, they don't do that. They, if anything, usually go the other way, but they give you a little bit of movement. So we're going to have to make some concessions. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how we drop these things, and we'll see where we end up, and we'll just sort of see if it feels right, looks right, and works right, and we'll go with it. So check this out. Set that there temporarily. You can see there's a pin here that'll go back up to line up the clip-on with the top clamp. All we're doing right now is just sort of moving it down to give us room to drop the front end. Okay, so right now we've got these clamp bolts loose. We've moved this. So as soon as I unclamp the top clamp here, the weight of the bike is going to try to push down, which will effectively move these forks up. Now, I don't want it to just jump, dive on the ground and come up here 3 inches. So I've got a jack underneath it that is keeping the bike about where I want it. And what I'm going to do is just sort of work with it, loosen the jack, press down, get these forks to come about where I want them, play around with stuff here a little bit, and we'll see how this clamping on the taper thing works out. And anybody with any sense is going to say, Brock, don't clamp on the taper. And this is definitely, if you're not comfortable with trying to make your bike as fast as possible, this is not something you're going to want to do. Just go ahead and live with the strap. We're trying to get this bike to be as fast as any of the other bikes that we've had going down the track, whether it be Christine, we've got some ZX-10s that are really, really quick, some ZX-14 Slugger. That bike went 880s, actually went 70s. So that's going to be a tough challenge for a bike like this if it's not on the ground. Do you see that? The way that moved, that was just the weight of the bike. And if I didn't have that jack here supporting the bike, this would have just kept falling. And that's not what we're looking to do. See what we got going on? There we go. If we sort of wiggle this, sometimes when they bind up like this, you have to get the plastic hammer out. But let's see where we're at right now. That's pretty good. That's nice and loose. There we go. There we go. Okay. Now, eyeballing that looks like approximately 1 inch. You can see how far down we are here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get these set, and then I'm going to play around with this bottom clamp to see if I'm confident that we're going to be able to clamp on that, have it be in fairly good shape. All right, so previously we were right at the bottom of this cap. If I measure this, just approximately, it's about 1/4 of an inch. So if I try to lower this thing 1 inch total, that means we're going to want about 1.25 inches. All right, so you can see we're a little bit tall right now on this one. This one actually needs to come down some. So what I'm going to do, because this one's pretty close, just going to give it a little bit of give it a snug to keep it from moving. Then we're going to come over here, try and coax that one to move a little bit, which I think it did. Yeah. Okay. All right. Very light. So now we want to get these things. We want both of these to be the same height. I usually go to within about 0.10 of an inch. And I always try to measure in the same spot, clamp to clamp. So currently, if I measure here, 1.3025. Do the same thing here, 1.250. So this one accidentally fell right where we want it. So we're going to have to move this one down a little bit. All we have to do, loosen that just enough to where we can give it a couple quick taps with our plastic hammer. Let's see where we ended up there. 303. .257. We're gonna give it just a baby love tap. 1.251. Okay. Ah. what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and snug this down pretty good. All right. So now the question is, when we go to tighten this, I tightened up pretty nice. Okay. One of the things that we want to do as we're snugging up the front end, we want to do what you call cycling it. It'll sort of help it keep it off of a bind and keep it straighter. So now we know we clamped enough for it to stay put. So basically what we're going to do is just cycle the front end. So it's pretty rigid. I don't have those bottom clamps tight yet. I can feel a little bit of movement. See if when I tighten that back up, that movement goes away. So Brock, what torque spec is that? That's the weird just testing thing out torque spec. If I took this and cranked down on it, it'd break these bolts and be a big pain in the rear end. So now what we're going to do, just to sort of show you, at the top of the clamp, we've got right about 100 thousandths. At the bottom, about 90. Right about 100. 85. So this one's tapered a little bit more. There we go. Same on same at the top and as the bottom on both sides. We'll jump back up here again real quick. Cycle the front end. Everything's smooth. I'm putting quite a bit of force to that. So I think we're good. I'm confident. I would go down the street on this bike. I'd go down the track on it quite a bit faster. And one of the things I'm going to explain to you also, we'll have guys say, hey Brock, if you got a strap, why do you need to lower the front end? What the strap actually does, and it is the simplest tool ever. Basically what it's doing, it's two things. It's lowering the bike, right? So we've got this much. We know we can't just drop this 3 inches because of the way the forks are designed. And also if we did, we like to be able to ride to the track, race, and ride home. If this thing was dropped in the forks 3 inches, it would be real tough to ride home. The bottom of the fairing would be right here on the fender. You really wouldn't have any suspension travel. So if I want to strap this bike down, all I've got to do you see that? That much fork showing. When I want to go home, boom. Now we've got our suspension back. And with the strap and the forks, we're about as low as we can get with this particular bike. Now here's the other thing. This is something that people don't really think about, because I'll have people ask also, well, if my front end's lowered, why do I need a strap? Well, we just explained that to you from the lowering standpoint. But watch this. Even if I lower my forks, if I don't have a strap, all right, I'm going to put that piece of tape there to show you how much sag we have in the front end now. All right. 1/2 inch. So what happens is, you go to launch, if your forks aren't, I won't call them rigid, but extremely compressed to take the spring preload out, and it also depends on how you have your fork set. Sometimes you have quite a bit more sag than that. That allows the wheel to stay on the ground, and the bike, we call it the slide hammer effect. It's sort of slide hammers, jackhammers, to where when the bike takes off, it gets a free run at the top out spacer, snap, yanks the bike right off the ground. Just pulls it right off the ground. So, by strapping, you saw the bike lower. Now look at that. I can move it up, but it's starting to lift the rear wheel off the ground. So it effectively takes that whole slide hammer effect out. And then to go back home, just loosen the strap and you've got your suspension and your bike's not too low to get you home. At least in the front, we're gonna work our way back now. Okay guys, while we're here, I just thought I'd explain front end strap and exactly how it works. Now, depending on the bike, sometimes you have to have a radial mount caliper bracket. Some of the older bikes, you could just bolt it directly onto the caliper somewhere. This is what we call our strap in kit, and basically what it does, there's always a length of strap here, and then so what can happen is if you don't use this kit, if you loosen your strap, the buckle can come back and beat up your radiator, which you don't want. The straps are super simple, and I always put my buckle on this side of the bike so that, let's say we're at the track and the bike's really low, I'll just sort of stand on my side stand, come down here, loosen up the strap. I say stand on my side stand because if you don't have your side stand down, you pop that, especially if it's super tight. We usually have 2 people help us with the strap. I'll show you that at some point too. The bike could actually pop up and fall on its side. Straps are the simplest things ever. All you want to do is make sure that you're not cutting or clamping any wires or cables. On this particular bike, we route it here under the gas tank cover, and then it can go over top because you really can't get to these wires to clamp them. Same thing over here. The bike has a little trough everything's going through, so we don't have to worry about it messing anything up, hampering our ability to ride, stop, or give it throttle. And then we always have people ask, well, do you leave the strap on all the time? Yeah, all the time. It's really easy. We give you a tie wrap so that you can tie up this end, because obviously if this goes down and falls into your front wheel, it's bad. This is a purely hypothetical situation that has never happened to me. Sitting at a stoplight, your buddy rolls up next to you, starts revving his engine. You got a clear road ahead of you. Don't do anything bad, but watch how quickly I can go from this bike's gonna wheelie like mad to this bike's gonna stay on the ground much, much better. Go forward, kiss your buddy goodbye, smile, make him buy you a beer when you're done. So anyway, just wanted to show you how quick and easy these straps are. They've been around for years, and there's a reason. They work fantastically. I have been working on motorcycles for many, many years. This is the online version of the OEM Suzuki. It's not one of the generic manuals. This is actually the Suzuki manual. And I reference these all the time, not only when it comes to assembling the bike, but also the torque specs. Looks like the bolts that we're going to be, that we need to tighten are right at 17 foot-pounds, 23 Newton meters. Do not be afraid to buy the genuine manual for your bike, because it will save you so much time, so much hassle. You know, if I don't know that that's 17 pounds, I crank it 25, go breaking bolts, having problems, man, just avoid all that and use the manual. We've got manuals for absolutely everything we work on here. One final. 251. 1.251. As long as they're the same, within about 10 thousandths, usually works great. All right. Now that pin is in the top clamp here, clip on. we're going to go ahead and put ceramic wheel bearings in this bike, but to do that, I'm going to reverse it on the lift just to make things a little bit simpler. So do that and be right back with you.